Hi, you're with the city.ie and we are in the city and we're in a particular part of the city, which is Brian Kennedy's house.
Yes, in Kilmainham, old Kilmainham, ladies and gentlemen, Dublin 8, as they say around here. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, Brian,
Eoin,
you've had a hell of a time this last few years.
I have.
And we will get to that. But one thing, actually, that guitar is here looking at me, and I wanted to know, one thing that I was taken back by the first time I saw you live was how good a guitar player you are.
You're not the first person to say that to me, and I'm always surprised slightly because I've always played guitar since the very beginning. The first album was 31 years ago, and I co-wrote and wrote all of that record, and I play all of the guitars on it. I think what happened was when the record company want you to be a bit more of a pop star, they kind of go, "I'll put that guitar down now and just go out and do your thing and be a bit sexy if you can." And so I suppose when I went on TV a lot, I didn't play guitar. I was encouraged more to be a bit more of a front man. And you can't really do that as successful with a guitar, I suppose, can you?
Yeah, you can.
You can. You and Bruce Springsteen can, I know, yes. But so I think that's partly what it is. And then, as you say, people come up afterwards and go, "God, you're a really interesting guitar player." I'm like, "Am I?"
And so tell me about that. When you picked up a guitar, who were your influences?
I'll have to pick it up and literally show you because
you better.
Joni Mitchell became the biggest influence ever. If you see up there, look. Joni Mitchell gave that to me. I went on tour with Joni Mitchell. If you see over there, Joni Mitchell and Bob Dylan and Van Morrison. I did that tour in 1998. So imagine my absolute amazement and surprise when I got offered that tour to sing with Van as part of the history with him.
Sure.
And it was the last time we did a proper tour like that. And the other artists were Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell.
Wow.
And I got to sing with Joni and meet with her and talk with her. And at the end of that tour, she gave me that, which is an artist print of the album that she had out at the time called Taming the Tiger, which is about her cat. Her cat's called Tiger. So she influenced this tuning. So this is for all those people who love this kind of idea. So D-A-D, F sharp, A-D. So that's a D chord, major. So, she would have done things like... You all know that one, right? And so then when I picked it up, I just started messing around with things like... That's a song called Believe It from my first record. But again, I was like 22, 23, I think, don't you think, I'd be interested to see what you say about this. When I first picked up the guitar to try and write a song, they just sounded like everybody else. It was just like, well, there's a D and a G and an A, so what? And maybe a B minor, okay. But every time I picked it up, I thought, well, what am I going to do? Everything's been written. Like, there's nothing new to bring to this. And my friend said, yeah, but this is an artist called Joni Mitchell and she makes up her own tunings. And I was like, what? And so the minute that became a possibility, this became a possibility. On every record that I've made, and I don't know how many I've made now, there's always an open tuned section. So, I mean, even something like Christopher Street from a few records ago wouldn't be possible without that tuning. You just change the key, of course. And it's like me getting to use, getting the guitar to sing rather than me. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just kind of... And that just happened late one night, me looking from my apartment down onto Christopher Street in New York, and I lived there in 2000. I was supposed to be resting my voice. I was doing 8 shows a week on Broadway in a wee musical called Riverdance, and I was trying to just get my guitar to do the singing rather than me. And that's how that song came about. Well, so Joni Mitchell, thank you for your tunings.
And so you really got to properly hang out with Joni? I
did, a little bit, yeah. It was 1998, and it was the first time I think they had ever toured together. So Van Morrison and Bob Dylan. And I mean, of course, it would be exciting enough just to do it with Van, and I'd done many, many tours with him across the world. Then we toured separately with Bob Dylan a couple of times. That was really extraordinary because I had this great uncle of mine called Brian Kennedy, who I'm named after, and he had this vinyl record collection when I was a wee kid that we were never allowed to go anywhere near, of course. So, of course, the only thing I wanted to do was go near it. And it had Joni, it had Bob Dylan, it had this fella called Van Morrison that I didn't realise was from Belfast when I first heard of him. And so that was like kind of the future, giving me a little wave going, see you in about 20 years. And, you know, you hear all kinds of stories about Dylan, but because again I work with Van a lot, and you hear all kinds of stories about Van, and you just think, well, there's a lot of myth around these people rather than they're just people really, and they're just exceptional musicians. Back in the day, do you remember, Owen, when when people were successful because they were the best at what they did? Remember those days? Those days are long gone, it would seem. But that's why we have artists like Dylan and Joni, and I know that you're a big Bruce fan and people like that, because they were the best at what they do.
Sure.
You know, and Joni for me just had something extra. So yeah, we ended up opening up on that tour in America. That poster is the Pauley Pavilion in Los Angeles, I think, and it's just extraordinary to think. I remember being we heard that Joni had the cold, she had a flu, but she hadn't toured for a long time and she was nervous and everything. And of course I was dying to meet her, but I just had to be like you meeting Bruce, be the same thing, I suppose. And I was in Van's dressing room one day. My job became this thing where I would say to Van, what do you want to start the show with? And he would say whatever song, maybe You Make Me Feel So Free or something like that. And then I would walk out and start it. And of course, as well-meaning people were going, oh yeah, that fella's pretty good, but like, paid in to see Van, where's he, you know? And so, but halfway through, I'd get the cue from the side of stage, you know, the tour manager to be like, Van's here, and then I'd just see the little hat or whatever, and I'd go, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Van, and the place would just go mental. I mean, it was a really clever thing to do, really. Yeah. So this was my job every night, to see which song he wanted to start with. And so the first time I ever met Bob Dylan, I was walking, the tour manager's like, now go over and just, you know, get the opening song, you know, because the clock is ticking. Yeah. You know, you get fined if you play over and all of that. And so it's in New York, I think it was. And I'm thinking, well, sure, okay. I mean, I'm not afraid of anybody. I'll meet anybody. So, but I'm aware of, you know, obviously Dylan's reputation. So as I get closer to Van and Bob Dylan, I hear Bob Dylan say to Van, so, you know that guy with the high voice, you know, the guy with the high voice that sings with you, is he on this tour? So Dylan is asking Van about me. And so Van goes, oh yeah, Brian Kennedy, you know, he kind of has this wonderful repetition thing that he does. And so just as Van is saying my name, I arrive, right? And so I'm not the tallest man in the world. I'm 5'11". Van is a bit shorter than that, and Dylan's around, they're that generation are often much smaller in real life, I think. I think we've gotten taller as a race, usually. So there they are. And so I'm just like, hello, gentlemen, sorry to interrupt. Hello, Bob, I'm Brian Kennedy. I'm singing with Van. He just goes, oh, hi. That's it, like nothing else. And of course, my job is then, Van, what do you want to start with? You know, blah, blah, blah. And so then I get the information, run to the stage, start the song, and finally. I mean, it worked every single time we did it. It was amazing. Great way to come on stage. So yeah, that was my first encounter with those extraordinary people. And Joni was in Van's dressing room, and I was in the toilet of his dressing room. Right, and I was sitting kind of going, that's Joni Mitchell. She's in, you know, she's next door. Right, talking to myself as I do. Yeah. And I was thinking, well, I can't just come out of the toilet and go, hello. So I just stayed in the toilet, and she finally left. And I was like, Van, how's Joni? Oh my God, is she well? You can't believe you're having these conversations, sure. Right? But you are. And she had also given him some art as well, and I was looking at that. And anyway, I just thought, okay, I missed my opportunity there. And I leave the dressing room, walk down this big long corridor, and who's coming the other way? Only Joni, towards me. And before I got a chance to be nervous or anything, she got closer and she just goes, are you Brian? I was like, I am, Joni, I am. It's so great to meet you. How are you? And we had this big conversation, and she said that somebody from Ireland sent her my very first album and said, I think this guy is something interesting, and he's clearly influenced by you, and it was absolutely true, of course. Yeah.
Well, and that's okay. That's your guitar playing, which you can.
Yes, I'll show you a bit more later.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can kind of trace your roots back to Joni.
Yeah.
With your singing, with your actual voice. Mm-hmm. You know, I went to see Damien Dempsey's new documentary film.
Oh, how is it? I saw that.
It's brilliant. But as I was sitting there, I was kind of remembering how he used to get almost slagged for singing in his own accent. Mm-hmm. I remember that. You have always sang in your own accent as well.
Pretty much.
Was that an intentional thing when you first sat down in your bedroom and started singing? Did you find yourself going, do you know what, I'm going to sing this way, or did it just come out that way?
Well, as I always say, nobody ever asked Beyonce to sing in anything other than her own accent. Sure. And I never did it consciously, certainly. But all I can tell you is that, again, it goes back to the women in my life, which would be Joni, it would then be Kate Bush, going further back than that. I was just listening to records that made my hair stand on end. First time I heard The Man with the Child in His Eyes, for example, things like that. It was very unconscious for me to do it. I only got conscious of it when suddenly I became a proper recording artist, and I would be in front of proper microphones, and then producers would say, I can't quite understand what you're saying. What are you saying there? And so I'd maybe alter it a little bit, because maybe people listening to this program now, I was out with my brother recently, who I don't see very often, but I saw him recently at a gig I did with Dervish and Eddie Reader the other night in Belfast. And his friend said, who I'd never met before, a lady, she said, "How come your accents are so different?" And I said, "Oh, because I've always been away. I lived away." And I remember being in London really clearly one day, now that you say that. And I stopped the bus and I said, do you go to, I said in my northern accent, "Do you go to Turnpike Lane?" I said, and he goes, "What?" I said, Turnpike Lane. Do you go there? And he goes, "What?" And I just went, "Oh, Turnpike Lane." And then he got it. He goes, "Oh, yeah, come on." And so I'm conscious of the fact that sometimes I can speak too quickly. I can speak more northernly if I'm around, people from there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I only got conscious of my accent when I started to record, and other people would say, "God, your accent is really strong on that song, that thing." I only ever got asked by one, actually an Irish producer once said to me, "Do you think you could make it a bit less northern?" And I said, "No, fuck off. I could not." So yeah.
Very good. Mm. And so, again, speaking, some people may not realise at first what a good guitar player you are. Some people may not also realise that you were an author sometimes. And you wrote 2 books in succession in 2004 and 2005.
Oh, you did your homework.
The Arrival of Fergal Flynn.
And Roman Song.
And Roman Song. Right. And I just can't help but wonder if in the last few years you have a sort of a fresh supply of petrol in that particular tank.
Yeah, I do. I just had a short story published in a lovely new collection called Reading the Future. That came out maybe a year or so ago. God, time goes by too quickly. Do you find now that you think in decades? You're probably too young still. I now think about things in decades, not in 2 or 3 years. Yes, there's all plans afoot to do some more writing. I've started something. I hate to talk about it because I just would rather, because the minute you say it, then there's expectation rather than just going, like when I first invited my mates to my book launch, they thought it was a biography. They didn't have a clue it was going to be a novel, or indeed the second one. So I like to keep all that stuff close to my chest. However, I think story writing in whatever form it is, whether it's a song or a book or a short story, it's all about the voice, really, isn't it? I mean, it's about. I mean, I went to Declan O'Rourke's launch the other night in Whelan's. He's got his first proper novel out, which I just bought, which is just over there. It's the most amazing thing to do, because if you're on tour and you're a singer, as you know, you get to travel the world and do that. Whereas if you're writing a novel, you sit absolutely still, and your brain does all the traveling. So you don't actually move from where you are. I suppose it's like taking MDMA or something. You're just in one place the whole time, and and then you're doing a lot of traveling, aren't you?
Sure.
So I love it, and for me it's like crop rotation, I would say. When I come to the end of a long tour, I really want to be on my own, because I've been around people and traveling so much. And then when I come to the end of a book, I'm dying to spend time with people and jump around the stage. So it's handy in that way. One thing kind of feeds the next thing in a way.
And I think you kind of just answered my question in that, or rather sort of subtly asked me not to ask the next question.
Fair play to me.
But what I was going to ask was, your novel, The Arrival of Fergal Flynn, had autobiographical elements in it.
Well, and you again, write about what you know, don't you?
Yeah, and as you said, that people almost assumed this was going to be an autobiography.
I know,
but it wasn't. You kind of used what you wanted and made up what you wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I for those who don't know the book, the central character is Fergal Flynn, who's a young gay teenager growing up on the Falls Road in West Belfast. I can absolutely relate to that character. However, I did not have an affair with a priest. I mean, as I always say, sad. Yes. Well, not yet. But as I always said, mainly because they weren't attractive, Yeah. If they had been, handsome dudes who played rugby on the side, then who knows what would have happened.
But do you think that? I mean, because even in your songs, there are sprinkles of autobiography in songs like Broken Crown,
yes,
and even in Child of War,
yes,
most certainly in your recovery EP. But are we getting closer to a Brian?
We are.
Autobiography.
We are.
Okay.
I actually wrote one a while back, and I got into fierce trouble before it even got anywhere near to being published. I had lawsuits coming at me already. That was a bunch of years ago, and now look what's happened in the last 3 years only. My God, there's a whole nother load of information that needs to go in there. Like that, we were joking aside about the 3 or 4 C's, you know, the cancer and cardiac arrest and the COVID and the chemo, and some people have died since that. And I'm now 55 years old as opposed to 45 or 35 when I did those other things. Yeah, I would like to think that I think these things have their own time. You know, I think you can try and put them out at a time. Clearly, that wasn't the right time for that book to come out, and hopefully that's on the change. Is all I'll say to you.
Now, you said earlier that you can't even remember yourself how many albums you've done at this.
I can't. I really can't.
But what I was going to ask, if you could pick, let's just say tomorrow, in some strange sequence of events, all of your albums, except for one, get erased, get deleted. Somehow the CDs all spontaneously combust. The original files are gone. You can't, but you can save one album.
Oh God.
One album that will exist and will be the sort of the artifact of Brian Kennedy's.
That's a horrible question, especially you as an artist yourself. You're a fucker for asking me that. But anyway, let's play along, because I can change my mind, of course.
Of course.
And it's not real.
It's unlikely to ever really happen.
Well, look, we're hurtling ever closer to eternal damnation, aren't we? In terms of if we keep electing idiots who can press the button to blow us all up, even though we didn't elect them. But anyway, I mean, I suppose there's nothing like the first time you do anything in life, and certainly the very first album is, you know, you only get to debut once in your life at anything, don't you? So I probably, just to be kind to myself and to be kind to my memory, and to also look back so kindly on that record and think, my God, that was the first time I did anything, really. Some of those songs were finished in the studio. They were mostly live performances around a couple of mics like this, double bass, piano and percussion, in a semicircle in Wessex Studios with Tim Freeze-Green producing, the Talk Talk producer. So I probably would say that one. That record, hilariously, most people just think it's called, you know, it's eponymous, it's called Brian Kennedy, but it's actually called The Great War of Words. And how true that title remains to me, because especially where I come from on the Falls Road in West Belfast, we still can't even get our language correct. They're still warring with each other about words rather than anything else. And then now look what's happening with the trans movement and all kinds of things. Words have become more important than ever about identity and about being understood. As we always say, you know, we may use the same words, but we don't really speak the same language half the time.
Sure. Yeah.
I would say. So yes, I would nominate The Great War of Words, if not only for the fabulous hair on the cover.
You've had some fine album covers.
I have.
And some fine displays of hair.
Indeed, I have. A very lucky man.
Here.
Yes. Yeah, you can get a close up of those over the years.
It's you do have quite iconic hair, really, don't you?
It turns out I do. And I didn't really think about it at all until I was doing chemotherapy, and it went really thin and horrible, and you know, and that I'd never been insecure about my hair. I'm insecure about lots of other things, but not my hair, because I never had to think about it. And suddenly I had to think about it and wear hats and
you don't know what you got till it's gone, as Joni would say.
Indeed. She's never far away.
No. And I'd love, if you wouldn't mind, a song. Would you give us a song?
I would love to give you a song. That's what I'm on the planet for. So I happen to have this guitar in my hand, which is the open tuned one. The other one is regular tuning.
Okay.
I wouldn't have written this song had I not lived in New York, and had I not been so obsessed with Joni Mitchell's tuning. And I was trying to make the guitar sing like I was singing earlier. So this is Christopher Street. I'll do a bit of it. Christopher Street was busy tonight as I made my way back home. One of these nights I'll turn on the light, like that taxi by the payphone. Well, I've been here a week, but it feels like more. And God knows how long I'll last. I picked up the mail from the hallway floor, and I'm finally making peace with the past. Most of my friends are busy tonight, just getting their kids upstairs now. How did our lives change so fast? You just never know what's up the road ahead, do you? Oh, that's me calling a taxi on the street in New York. Now Christopher Street has quietened down. Seems even New York needs to sleep sometimes. But one of these nights, when I put out the lights, well, I'll find you waiting to love me. On Christopher Street, that's a slightly shorter version. I left out a verse.
Cracking.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And as I'm sitting here, I cannot resist the opportunity to ask you to do even a verse and a chorus of one more. Would you do Life, Love and Happiness?
Oh, I need the other guitar for that, or I could just do it a cappella on the thing.
Ooh.
I just need the right key. Will you walk with me through this world and never let me down? Oh, listen now. Can you hear our sound? Look what we have found. Another day ends peacefully. And oh, now tell me, is this the way it's meant to be? Oh, don't let go again. It's your life, love, your happiness. You were meant to join in that part. Thanks very much. So yeah, you got a verse of course. Oh, you would. Of course you would.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
That's Brian Kennedy for the city.
Glackin.
For the city.ie. We'll see you soon.